Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life. My name is Jeff Harding. I'll be your host today on this amazing journey. I'm sitting in for Kyle Case, who is still out of town. Joining me today is my co-pilot, Derek Campbell. How you doing, Derek?
Great, Jeff. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Good to have you here.
Thanks.
And for those of you who have been listening, you know that Derek started just a few weeks ago, and he's been sitting in. He's getting more and more comfortable. He actually looks relaxed today, so that's great to see.
Yeah. I'll get there someday, Jeff.
You will. Well, Derek, when was the last time you went to the doctor?
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. It's not something that I do on a regular basis. Is it something you do on a regular basis?
No, it is not.
It's like maybe a once a year when I get my annual checkup thing. It's not something that's high on my priority. Well, it is high on my priority list, but something that I try to put off as long as possible.
Yeah, my doctor reintroduced himself and said, welcome to the clinic. I'm Dr. Taylor. Yes.
Said yes.
I know.
We've met before. Don't you remember poking and prodding me?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, because we don't go to the doctors as often as maybe we once did, or we don't know them as well because the clinics are bigger, it's bigger times, I came across a list of 6 questions you need to make sure your doctor is asking you when you go in for an appointment.
Okay.
We tend to be a little complacent. We tend to think that the doctors are going to be all-knowing and be able to take care of everything and ask every question that should be asked, but we need to be proactive in our health care. So here are 6 questions that you need to make sure that you and the doctor are discussing when you're in there.
All right, let's hear them.
The first one is, where have you been? What's been going on recently in your life?
Okay, so that's what you want the doctor to ask you.
The doctor should be asking you that.
Okay.
And the reason is because sometimes things that are going on, if you're experiencing a lot of stress, if you've had some major changes in your life, then it's going to give him a clearer picture of what's going on in your health.
Yeah.
And so it's important that he finds out just organically what's going on in your life and not necessarily just physically.
Okay.
The second one, which is the physically, is what brought you here today and why does it concern you? And
yeah,
you know, there's a standing joke with my doctor's assistant. She said, "What brought you here today?" And I said, "My car."
Yeah.
So now she's always careful to phrase the question differently so that she doesn't get that answer, because she knows that's what she'll get if she asks me that question. But it's important for the doctor to know specifically the concerns you have and why it's a concern to you. You know, I have a pain in my back. Well, we all have a pain in our back, but I have a pain in my back that is especially strong when I lift or when I bend or when I twist. Those things can be important, again, in diagnosis. So
helping the doctor to help you.
Right. The third thing the doctor should be asking you is, do I have the story and details right? In other words, reflective listening or active listening. Mm-hmm. And it's important because you may think you communicated clearly. The doctor may think that he or she understands clearly, but by communicating back and forth, you can make sure that there is a clear communication and you're not trying to solve the wrong problem.
Yeah, miscommunication happens way too easily.
Yeah, and then the next question they should be asking you is, does what I said make sense? And that's the doctor when they're consulting with you and they're talking about either the treatment plan or what they think the diagnosis might be. The doctor wants to make sure that you're understanding clearly what they're saying to you. And it's especially important if you're dealing with medications and so forth, that you have a clear understanding. Like if you say a thyroid medication, if you get a thyroid medication, the doctor says, take this on an empty stomach, or take this first thing in the morning. He may say, take this first thing in the morning, but what he really needs to say is take this on an empty stomach, because first thing in the morning to some people means right after breakfast.
Yeah.
But thyroid needs to be taken on an empty stomach. So it just makes sure that the channels of communication are clear. And sometimes it's also helpful to have a guest, a friend, a spouse, somebody else in the office with you, and then the two of you compare notes once you've left to make sure that you both understood the doctor the same way.
Yeah, I went under the knife a few weeks ago for the very first time, and the doctor says, "Well, keep it dry. Keep the wound dry, keep it clean, and come back and see me in 2 weeks. We'll take the stitches out." Well, to me, what does keep it dry and keep it clean mean?
That's all relative. So it's important, and it's okay to ask questions of our doctors.
Yeah.
We sometimes feel like we put them on such a high pedestal, we don't think we can talk to them, but we can and should. And then the last question that is really important that the doctor should be asking you is, what changes will you make going forward? In other words, we've come up with this treatment plan for you. Now, how are you going to implement that plan? What changes are you going to make sure that this plan happens?
Yeah.
So 6 things that you need to make sure you have a conversation with when you go in and visit a doctor.
Yeah, it should be a little longer than, doctor, it hurts when I do this. Well, then don't do that.
Right. The standard joke.
Right. That's all I've got. But
it was good. It worked. It was appropriate for the situation. It really worked there.
Yeah. My last doctor visit, I know this is unbelievable, but the office visit was so short. I was actually out of the office before my appointment time. So maybe it would have been good to have more conversation with him.
Did you call Guinness? Because that might be a world record.
It might be.
It might be a world record. Well, today we have in studio with us Christy Benton, and she's a dietitian, and it's great to have you. Welcome, Christy.
Hey, it is a thrill to be here, Jeff and Derek. Apparently we met somewhere in the past, but
yes.
Again, good to see you, and thank you again for having me on today.
Oh, we appreciate you being here. Today, we're going to invite Christy to, right now we're going to invite Christy to tell us a little bit about herself.
Well, I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. I have been practicing in that field for, let's just say, over 30 years and leave it at that.
Oh, that's impossible.
I did start my career in Southern California, was very active in several hospitals there.
At the age of 2, probably.
Yes, indeed. I was quite young. I was, again, in the record book because I was so young. But indeed, fate brought me here to St. George, and I have now been at Dixie Regional Medical Center approximately 20 years, a fabulous 20 years. So I'm thrilled to be here. I love the field of dietetics. I love food. I think that could be why I ended up in this field.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't surprise me. I love food, as it is obvious if anybody that sees me that I love food. I've not said too many goodbyes in my lifetime to food. So you met fate early on in your life if you've been here for 20 years.
It was an interesting through the darts at the map, and we searched out several different places, and St. George won. Who would have thought? I do want to tell you a very funny story
Please
about
do.
when I got here. I had just had a child, and I went to labor forces, and the man says, well, what do you do? What field are you looking for? And I said, well, I'm a dietitian. And the gentleman said to me, well, one will have to die before you get a job in town. And, of course, I was elated to have moved to St. George
At that point.
with that greeting. But, indeed, fate was wonderful. I got my foot in the door. And, again, 20 great years at Dixie Regional Medical Center. Just wonderful.
Well, we're lucky to have you here. Great to have you. So let's talk about food. Let's talk about, let's look at it from the aspect of somebody who maybe has been a little bit out of shape, who's thinking about starting to become active again. What should they be looking at to help them have the energy they need to start an exercise routine?
Well, even exercise or changing your diet habits, you do want to see or observe, if you will, where you've been. What's going on in your life? Is there a place where I can make that first change? And it may be something as simple as taking the prepared foods out of the freezer. It may be as simple as saying, look, I see everybody walking. I'll bet that I, too, can walk to the end of the block and back. So when we talk about making changes, it's about making a small, accomplishable goal, doing it, sealing it, and then moving it on to the next one. But as you make these goals, you want to be able to build on them. I've gotten rid of the preservatives in my food, or my freezer is now frozen pizza free. What can I do now to bring in healthier foods? Can I peruse the grocery stores and stick to the perimeters, or am I going to find myself going back to the aisles? So kind of, again, looking at where you are and making that first simple but significant step.
No, wait a minute. You said pizza. Isn't that one of the main food groups?
Some people do consider pizza
I know that's
a food group.
It's one of the Friday. It's our Friday food group at our home.
Yes, for a lot of people, and I don't want to break it to you, but it was removed as a food group quite a while ago.
Oh,
However,
wow.
I know, make your own, as they say.
Well, isn't the food pyramid shaped after a pizza? Don't they just go together?
They do.
A slice of pizza
that is
anyway.
a wonderful observation. We'll have to send that to the Dietetic Association. But a reverse one. The pyramid is indeed gone. Yes, historically, we did rely on the pyramid, and certainly before that, there were food groups. It grew into the pyramid to indicate where the emphasis in food choices can be. Mm-hmm. And if you did look at the pyramid, of course, we started at the base. It was starches and carbohydrates and breads and cereals and grains. And as you moved up, it went to the plants and the vegetables. And as you got up to the top of the pyramid, our animal food sources came in. And then at the very tip, where you might find that pizza and chocolate, were the fats and the things that I say enhance the flavors of other items.
Yummy food.
Some certainly do count as yummy, but there were no requirements for pizza. There's no requirement for chocolate, but we do recommend that you get plenty of fruits and vegetables.
Well, just on that subject, my mom says that a balanced diet is chocolate in both hands.
And sometimes I agree with that. Now, and I will tell you, and very hot in the news these days, dark chocolate does indeed have nutritional value in the sense that they have flavonoids, which help us with anti-inflammatory properties. So, indeed, there is a reason to have a small but significant.
Oh, those emphases.
Yeah, small but significant chunk of chocolate at the end of the day. But make sure it's dark.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life on Fox News, 1450 AM. We're talking with Christy Benton, a registered dietitian.
So, Christy, I grew up with the food pyramid as the Bible of what to eat, when to eat it, how much to eat. And I believe now my children are more introduced to this My Plate process. I don't know much about it. I just know that the food pyramid, I was told, is gone. So, different theories, different quantities of food, things of that. But I'm curious from your perspective, what do you see as a dietitian of practice for over 30 years as a good balanced diet? Walk me through a day of what I should eat.
Okay, so I am a big fan of breakfast. There is some controversy. Is it the most important meal of the day? There's a little research out there these days that says, no, they all count. Some people do want to start with their breakfast. So as I look at breakfast as perhaps the simplest meal, we're usually on the run. It needs to be quick, but it needs to be nourishing. I try to include 3 food groups, those food groups being the choice of the grains, the vegetables, the fruits, some dairy or protein. So I might start with a slice of whole grain toast, a non-fat Greek yogurt, and some fresh fruit. And that would constitute a breakfast. Having said that, maybe I'm a fan of hot cereal. I may throw some oatmeal into, dare I say, the microwave, perhaps top it with a little milk, and again, a side of fruit to go with that. So I'm trying to get 3 of the food groups represented there. As I move into my lunch, and I tend to be a tulip eater in the sense that I start small, lunch is a little bit bigger, and dinner is generally my biggest meal, although that is not always the optimal way of looking at it. You might find that your lunch, again, includes 3 or 4 food groups. So a lean turkey sandwich with lettuce and tomatoes on whole grain bread, a touch of mayonnaise, representing their 3 food groups. I may have a bag of carrots, cauliflower, broccoli, fresh zucchini, celery to munch on, and maybe a piece of fruit. If I couldn't hold all that at one time, I might find myself splitting that and having half of the sandwich at lunch, maybe half in the afternoon. Dairy, some people would sub maybe the fruit and put in a yogurt or even a glass of milk. And so as I move into the end of the day, I would then think I need meat or some sort of protein source with my meal. I try to get a protein source at least twice a day. If I can't get it at breakfast, it's going to end up being at lunch and dinner. So my dinner might be a piece of lean chicken. It could be salmon. It could be, yes, indeed, it could be red meat. That's okay. With that, I might serve a whole grain, something new, maybe a quinoa, maybe even a baked potato on occasion. If I were doing pasta dishes, it would be whole grain. I would make sure that my plate has a multitude of different vegetables, as in a salad, and even maybe a cooked vegetable. I might have a fruit on the side. That might be something more I'd put toward the end, but I would probably also have a glass of milk. So my goal is to get the recommended number of servings, again, going back to the pyramid, from the food groups spread over 3 meals. Doesn't say you can't enhance your meal choices with perhaps salad dressing on a mixed green salad, or perhaps, dare I say, some kind of spread or butter on your potato. It's okay.
Dare say it.
Dare say it. I just did, and thank you.
That'll keep me from feeling guilty, because as I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm thinking, not doing so well.
We can strive for perfection, but sometimes that isn't always as good tasting as enjoying that piece of dark chocolate at the end of the day. We do want to look at our nutritional intake first, but there's always room for enhancements. And sometimes those enhancements may be a larger piece of turkey or meat at dinner time because you had a really great day and you feel like, you just barbecued and this is fabulous. It may be that somebody made strawberry shortcake with the berries that the neighbor grew. So we want to allow some room for not frivolity, but certainly fun choices. There's an old rule, the 90-10. 90% of your choices are good, 10% are fun.
I'm back on that 90-10 rule, thinking, oh my goodness, I think I have my percentages
askew.
Off
the
just a little
90-10
bit.
is on the wrong side.
As I hear you talk, I don't hear you talking so much about calories as about food choices.
Calories certainly play a role. Calories in, calories out, weight is maintained. The caloric demands of different people, certainly all through our life cycle, change. When we finally get to an adult stature, we may be somewhere in that 15 to 2,200 calorie range. Adults, male and female, depending on how active we are. As we get a little bit older, we will find in most cases our caloric demand starts to diminish. If our eating doesn't reduce at the same time, some of us can get a little weighty toward middle age.
I like to call us well-rounded.
Well-rounded, and a very great description.
Very well-rounded people.
There you go.
So, Christy, I started using a fitness tracker when I started working at the games, and we were trying to not exceed my my calories, my recommended
your rested
caloric
metabolic
intake.
rate,
based on your fitness app,
right? And so I find myself, inputting my breakfast, my lunch, my dinner, and the closer I stay to this, I just find that I'm always hungry. And I know, people will start diets, and then over time they just say, I'm always hungry. And so they get off the diet and they jump back onto what's satisfying and, fills their stomach. So how do you combat that if you are doing what you're supposed to, but you always feel hungry?
You have to differentiate a craving versus a want, and sometimes that is a big challenge. We get accustomed to our eating habits. We may be grazers. There's always food coming in every hour. I've got something coming in. And when you say, hey, look, I'm going out a different direction. I'm going to eat 3 squares a day. If I snack, it's going to be carrots. And you bite off more than you want to chew at the point. So you can, okay, look, I'm hungry. I really need to satisfy this. If you're truly hungry, you need something. Get some protein, get a little carbohydrate, a little vegetable, piece of fruit. and see if it satisfies you.
Now, Snickers bars say that that's supposed to satisfy you when that happens.
The ads do say that, and I suspect that some dietitians or some people could make a great point that this is all the food groups wrapped into one, but we really don't. But you're right. When we go out on this grandiose plan, I'm starting the diet today, I'm going to eat right, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to drink plenty of water, and you find out you feel deprived. Because you've set your limitations so close, there's no leeway. You feel like if I cheat, I might as well throw the whole thing out. So again, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. It's a gradual adaptation going from 2,200 down to 15. You are going to feel hungry. So maybe you only need to cut or adjust by a few hundred calories. Maybe you need to take some of that lunch and indeed plan to have it in the afternoon. So there is a gap filler before you get to dinner.
Okay.
All right. Well, I want to shift gears just a little bit in the last few minutes we have left. Now, we are talking the active life. What if you're actually trying to train, if you're in a training mode and you're trying to build muscle mass? Are there foods that are better for helping build muscle mass than others?
Well, indeed. If you look at what the basic composition of muscle, we go, well, it's protein. And if you are trying to build mass, you need to get adequate protein. Having said that, if you don't have enough calories going in to allow that protein to be used for the building of mass, you're going to use it for energy. So again, I find folks that think, well, if I eat 3 ounces of red meat, I will add 3 ounces of lean body mass. It doesn't work that way. Certainly, if you are trying to increase your body mass, you do need to increase your protein intake. We have a very low, I think, basic requirement for protein. For men, it's only 55 grams a day. I don't know any male who eats 55 grams of protein. We are up there in the 90 to 110 or more, depending on what's going on. But again, when we're trying to build, when we're trying to train, it's a matter of fueling property. You usually do have to up your caloric intake. You might be looking at 30 to 35 calories per kilogram, which is kind of high for some folks. We run more on a 20 to 25 if we're just trying to maintain. And your protein has to go up accordingly. But if it's not there, it isn't going to be put on.
Okay. Do you have one last quick question, Derek?
Well, I'm really curious. Adding that protein and mixing the food intake with your exercise. I guess we call that eating.
The lay people do.
Yeah.
The professionals don't, but the lay people do.
So should you? I was told recently you should eat some protein and get those things into your body immediately after you exercise, so that your body can use that now and start to repair and to build. Is that true? And are there other little tips like that might be good to know for people who are being active and exercising? And
Yeah, that is true. To a degree, once we exercise, if you will, the body's kind of primed to kind of suck up the nutrients. So post-exercise, if you've really worked out, let's say you did a resistance training routine, you're really pumped up the muscles, you still need to get some protein afterwards. So we use a ratio, usually of 3 to 4 grams of carbohydrate to 1 gram of protein. Here again, if you overshoot the protein, you're not going to assimilate all of it. The added carbohydrate with that protein kind of primes the body to suck up a little more of the amino acids into the muscles. You usually need to get that within about 30 to 45 minutes post-exercise. It does make a difference.
Wow, it's good to know. Good advice. Well, Christy, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been a wonderfully informative and greatly demoralizing radio show for me.
Talking about food is never positive.
Yeah.
Well, when you find out you're doing it all wrong. No, I'm not. I'm really not doing it all wrong. And it's not demoralizing. It's been wonderful having you here, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us.
It has been a joy being here. I love yakking about food. Again, it's one of my favorite subjects. Thank you to all of you.
Well, maybe we can have you back again in the future.
Thank you, Christy.
So, Derek.
Yeah, are you going to change the way you eat?
Are you my doctor?
Well, I know. You should probably ask him,
Yeah, my doctor's told me that I need to change the way I eat. And I actually have changed the way I eat several times over my life, from good to better to good to better to good. And right now,
well, at least you're in the good and better zone.
Well, I'm not going to confess to being in the bad zone. There's children out there that are in their informative. They're impressionable.
You know, working at the Huntsman World Senior Games and having a focus on health and how important it is in life. It's been a change for me. So I've noticed a change just in my time there. So.
Well, it's been great to be with you folks today. Just a reminder that registration is open. We do have a few sports that are closed, but we still have a lot that are open. Go to www.seniorgames.net. Click on the sport of your choice and register. If you have any feedback for us for the Active Life, send us an email at activelife@seniorgames.net. If you've enjoyed this show, you can hear it again online at our website. It'll be back up as soon as Kyle gets back and can put it back up. And even all of our past shows are there. So it's been great being here. It's been great learning about the nutrition and how we have to do it better. And so at this point, let's just say, stay active. Bye, everybody.